Hi, hello, my name is Lottie, aka Sneezy Ferret, and we really do have to talk about this article. It's not pleasant. I'm sorry, but it needs to be discussed. So, it's that grooming gang families infiltrate charities to threaten the survivors. Now, if you've checked out any of these survivors' social media pages, you will have seen some of the vitriol which has been spat at them. It is disgusting. One current MP, ex-police officer, has been called out for harassing the victims. But this is a bit different. This is the actual gangs themselves getting their families and friends to pile on the victims. If it's not bad enough that these victims have already been abused and hurt, then it's made 100 times worse by the fact that it's continuing in a different form, but it's still abuse and it's still harmful. So, yeah, let's read it. Relatives and associates of abusers have applied for jobs at organisations offering support to victims, the head of a charity warns. Grooming gang family members have been applying for jobs at charities to threaten and intimidate victims into silence, the Times has been told. Despite perpetrators being on watch lists or in prison, their relatives have routinely tried to infiltrate organisations that support the survivors of sexual exploitation. Paul O'Rourke, the managing director of Next Stage Youth Development, which has helped 4 girls abused by Rochdale grooming gangs, said the problem was really common in the sector, but has been overlooked amid the national outcry. Over the past decade, his small charity has identified 5 people with ties to grooming gangs, who have sent in bogus job applications in order to get close to the victims. The most recent attempt was made last summer. Once the gang in Rochdale found out where those young people were, they tried to infiltrate, to get access to them, to interfere with them as witnesses and to threaten them, O'Rourke said. They also tried to recruit them back into grooming gangs because they were still very vulnerable. Offenders often realise that their names are likely to appear on safeguarding lists, which are compiled by local authorities shared with relevant charities, prompting them to enlist the help of relatives. O'Rourke said, "We do have systems that protect against that, but they're not fail-safe. They might not get through the net themselves because they're logged as a high-profile person, so they'll get someone close to them to do it instead." I'm sorry, but this is bloody disturbing. How do they have no fear of the police? Maybe it's because the police didn't investigate this to begin with. It's just weird in this country, isn't it, how people are afraid of using their right of free speech to speak out openly. I mean, I was terrified the channel was going to get buried for speaking openly, but I stopped caring about that. But these people are brazen. They don't care. And we've helped them with this by not criminalising them, not prosecuting them. We've helped aid in a culture where these people think they are above the law. It's one of the things that I'm hoping the inquiry kind of gets into, is this very specific thing that seems to be happening with these very specific types of grooming gangs. And unlike Keir Starmer, I'm not coward, I'll say it out loud, the predominant makeup, the demographic of these people are Pakistani. They're Pakistani men. And for some reason, their family and friends don't seem to think that they are disgusting creeps. No. Instead, they're going to actually help them by intimidating and harassing the victims. There is something very sick and twisted about that. They hurt children. But then I suppose when our own government bodies, such as the compensatory body, labels these children as complicit in some cases, because as a child you can be complicit in your own rape. If you weren't aware of that, now you are. I will have the article up there so that you can see it. The one rule I have about the channel is I cannot say anything which has not been backed up with a source. I can't. I've heard the rumours. Lots and lots of different rumours, but I can't repeat them because I will lose my channel. I have to be very, very careful. As it is, I say quite a lot. I try to say as much as I can, but I do need to be able to back up what I say. I rant a lot. I'm really sorry. Let's get back to the article. Even when these people were known by the local authorities, somehow, on rare occasion, Safeguarding hasn't shared that information or intelligence with us as providers. Next Stage recruiters have managed to spot attempted infiltrators by being extremely vigilant when it comes to vetting new staff. Even when you've caught them out, they try again, O'Rourke said. He revealed that the most recent incident occurred around August last year, when a relative of a grooming gang member sent in a CV that did not raise any red flags on the charity's intelligence system. It was only because one of our vigilant colleagues recognised that member of the family, because they were on one of the grooming documentaries on TV, he said. We had to go to the authorities and raise that intelligence, and it turned out that they did know him, but his name wasn't on the list that we have. O'Rourke said that the grooming networks have been exploiting a recruitment crisis affecting the sector. He explained, providers are struggling to find enough people who want to work in the care and support sector, both with adults and young people. And that pressure only makes things worse. When teams are desperate to fill roles, mistakes can happen in recruitment. People aren't always vetted as thoroughly as they should be, and that creates opportunities for organised groups to try and get in. We are so careful because you can be brilliant for 20 years but then just make one mistake. Organised groups. I'm so glad there's so many people out there who want to protect rapists, but you know. Gang members and their associates are opportunists who also try calling and emailing charities to extract information about victims. In some cases, they have appeared in person to harass victims and threaten next stage staff. When we had some of these young girls, we had incidents where they, grooming gang members, would be bold as brass, knocking on the door of our children's home at the time, trying to get to these girls, O'Rourke said. They didn't care that there were professional staff on site. It is criminal to do that with intent, and we didn't tolerate it, and were robust in our response, and the police were brilliant in backing us. But these people had no fear. They would do anything to get to these kids. They would swear at us, threaten us. Again, with the no fear. People who do nothing wrong in the country are terrified that they'll end up with a police officer at their door for just saying something online. And yet these people, who have done what Britain used to, at least consider to be the worst crime you could ever commit, and that is a crime against a child, are brazen. They don't care. And that's because that has been allowed to happen. See, and again, another rant, I am sorry, I really am, but I've said it before, and that is that as members of society, we have a responsibility and obligation to protect the vulnerable. When a child doesn't have a parent around to protect them, and it could be for all sorts of reasons, we as society step up to protect that child. Now, what we have done is put institutions in place which are supposed to do that for us. But they failed. They didn't do so. I've heard a lot of people talking about, oh, well, we just need to make some new policies. That won't work. We had policies in place, okay? Back in 2015, we had the Children's Safeguarding Act. I think it's called that. I'll have it up at the side. And it included a provision at the end that if you didn't follow this, it would be against the law. Now, the people who are supposed to follow that act are people who work with children, such as police, teachers, social workers, that kind of thing. But they didn't abide by it. And I don't see any of them in court right now. Do you? Some of them are still in their jobs. They didn't just ignore these children. They harmed them further. And this is what happens. They're not afraid because they were never prosecuted. There's been a couple of occasions recently, in very recent news actually, of some police officers taking bribes to not look into this, to turn a blind eye. That is why they've become so bold as brass, as they said. Because they don't fear our police. Innocent people do, the guilty do not. Because they know that they will not be prosecuted through fear of being called a racist, through fear of increasing racial tensions in areas, which is disgusting. I'm sorry, but your race or religion should not exempt you from prosecution or investigation. Never. We do not or should not have a two-tier justice system in our country. If you commit a crime like that, especially against a child, you go to prison for a very long time. Forever would be nice. I can't say anything worse than that because, again, channel, but I think you know what I mean. This month, 7 men were given lengthy prison sentences for subjecting extremely vulnerable girls to a campaign of rape over several years in Rochdale. After a trial at Manchester Minshull Street Crown Court, the group were found guilty of 50 charges of various child sex offences relating to 2 teenage girls between 2001 and 2006. One girl, who was 13 when she was abused by a different grooming gang in the area, has spoken for the first time about the sexual exploitation she endured. The victim, who is now 25 and a mother, told The Times this week that she was targeted by predatory men shortly after her mother left home. They quickly took over the property, turning it into a party house, employing her and her friends with alcohol and drugs. It was terrifying. I was still a child, but I felt trapped in something I didn't understand and couldn't get out of, the woman who asked to remain anonymous said. I lost my sense of who I was, and every part of my life was controlled by them. There was a lot of fear, manipulation, and shame. I was scared of what would happen if I tried to say no. They convinced me that this was normal and somehow my choice. It took 7 years for her to find the courage to escape from the network, but getting away wasn't easy and didn't happen all at once, she said. It took time and trust from my support workers at Next Stage Youth Development to help me see that there was a way out. They worked with me to give me somewhere safe to live and start rebuilding my life. Despite finding freedom, she has continued to face harassment from people linked to her abuses. She said there have been times when people connected to them have tried to get back in touch, trying to see where I was living or what I was doing. They acted like nothing had happened, as if everything was normal. People linked to them have tried to intimidate me online or spread rumours about me. It's been really difficult because it brings back a lot of the fear and anxiety. I've worked so hard to move on and rebuild my life, so these instances make that difficult. But I make sure to report anything that happens and focus on keeping myself and my child safe. I don't think that kind of fear ever completely goes away, especially when after being controlled for so long. But I'm stronger now because of the support I've received, and I know how to reach out for help when I need it. These girls are having to be braver than they should be to get their voices heard. They're putting up with harassment, intimidation, the perpetrators themselves continuing to harass them and abuse them even after the fact. Where our institutions do nothing, our politicians do nothing, everybody just sits on their hands, passes the buck, even our press. I've been reminded in the comments, and I remember them myself, but 10 ton of different articles that the different news outlets have released over the years, all claiming that this is a right-wing conspiracy. Oddly enough, when I went looking for those articles, a lot of the ones I remembered are gone. Isn't that funny? I'm sure they'll deny deleting them, but they're sure as hell not there now, and I remember them. I've got very good memory. They called these girls all sorts of things. That they were complicit in their abuse is just disgusting. To accuse a child of being responsible for their own abuse is just the worst type of victim blaming. I've said before that, yes, I do have a dog in this fight. Yes, I know one of the victims. And if anything, it just makes me angrier at myself. Because I didn't do anything. I didn't know about it until after the fact. So I do have to kind of tell myself that. But the problem is I really shouldn't blame myself at all. I didn't do that to them. But I have lived in a culture, and I haven't spoken up sooner, that allowed this to happen. Allowed the silencing of these girls. All through fear of racism. I'm sorry, but we criminalize the abuse of children. We prosecute these people and send them to prison. We don't give them free rein to be able to go and then harass and abuse these victims further. And the fact that they feel brazen enough to be able to do so is a condemnation of our justice system in itself. I've said before, our justice system is a mess, and this just piles more on top of it. It's disastrous. In this country, at least in the past, every single person here, I believe every person, most people, would get behind the fact that there is no crime worse than that of hurting a child. None. But we're now a nation which doesn't just allow it to happen, but we make it easy for these people. And the fact that our Prime Minister is such a coward he won't even say what the problem is out loud, well, it speaks volumes. I just don't want us to be there again. I want us to move forward and do something about this, and that starts with raising up these girls' voices and make sure that they are heard. I've seen a lot of discussion recently online about people saying, well, we've already had an inquiry, and, what's the point of another one? Well, the first inquiry wasn't really about this, it was about other things. And the recommendations it made by Baroness Casey were very simple. 1, there should be a national inquiry. Not a regional one, because then that allows the perpetrators to move to different areas to avoid the scope of the inquiry. The second one that was, and I was amazed that this wasn't a thing in the first place, we need to start keeping a database of the nationality of the perpetrators so we can have some idea of how large a problem this is. No more covering it up, we actually look at it and try to deal with it. Because if we don't even know the numbers, how the hell can we expect to change things? It's ridiculous. It's not racist to say that. It's not racist to look into that. If this is something which is being perpetuated in certain communities, then it desperately needs to be fixed. No, it's not true that every single person who is Pakistani is responsible for this. But there does seem to be a larger amount than there is in any other culture in our country. And that is something we do need to look into. Because we're finding out that it isn't just the perpetrators from these communities which are committing the crimes, but other people in their communities which are helping them cover it up. And going further than that and intimidating and humiliating the actual victims themselves. And that's something we don't usually see with grooming gangs. We see the perpetrators try to intimidate them, yes, of course. But seeing friends and family, seriously? That's not something which has been normal in the UK. We don't accept this. We shouldn't accept this. It's not right wing. This should be beyond politics here. This is our children. Our kids, our future. I've seen the damage that this does to these people. I have. And it infects everything. This isn't just some problem that can be put down. It's something which follows them every step of their lives. They, on occasions, like I'll be talking to I'll be talking to someone, and it's almost like, the only way I can describe it's like a shadow that passes behind the eyes when they're talking about something completely different, because it's so poisonous that it gets into everything. We're supposed to have this right as people, that we look back at our childhoods, and yes, they're never perfect, but there should be some happy memories that we can cling to. For these girls, most of them are toxic. And it's shameful that we allowed that to happen. It's shameful that it's continuing. And it's worrying and chilling that the people at the top who were supposed to be there to help us are doing nothing more than hindering us, and using this inquiry as just another form of cover-up, so that they can choose who is in charge of it, so they know what to ignore and what to include. These girls are not asking for much, okay? They've asked for an inquiry. They just want some answers. And let's face it, we failed them so much, we can at least give them this, surely. At the very least, we owe them this. The nation to go, right, let's look at the people who did this to you, look at the people who were supposed to deal with it, and actually answer some bloody questions. I've seen other people say, well, we just need to change policies. There were already policies in place to protect these kids, and guess what? They didn't. Nobody cares. And that's the problem. We've all become quite complacent in our lives, and we just think that things are beyond us. We feel hopeless in that. I know that because I felt like that myself. Completely bloody hopeless. What the hell can I do as an individual? Well, not much. But en masse, oh, hell yes, we can do a lot en masse. I'm going to leave the video here because it does just become me ranting in the end, and it's probably not helpful. Support the girls. If you see bullying on their online sites, if you see people trying to harass them, take screenshots, call it out. Gang up on these evil people, because that seems to be the only thing that will shut them up and shut them down. Report it if you see anything which needs reporting. After all, our police love investigating horrible things online, so maybe they're willing to investigate the bullying of a child sex rape victim. Maybe. We'll see. Anyway, I'm going to leave the video here. I love you all very much. Please take care. Thank you for the support you've been giving me on the channel. I do appreciate it. I did figure that once I started to cover more serious things, stuff like this, that the channel will be buried. But thankfully, people are starting to talk about this, and that's great. So yeah, I shall see you all in the next video. Please, please, please take care. We do have to rely on ourselves. We cannot rely on our government. Those in power just, unfortunately, are part of this. So yes, I love you all very much. Bye-bye.